When I play up game and then talk, I'm trying, Jennifer.
Rip City, what's going on, everybody? We are back. We're back. We're here to talk about some draft scenarios, some trade scenarios, not draft scenarios, some trade scenarios. I got Fawad here with me tonight. Fawad, once again, how are you tonight?
I'm doing great. I think we missed last week, so I'm excited to be back.
Yeah,
Very excited about today's episode.
We missed a couple weeks, I think, but that's mostly because I had to go have surgery to get my gallbladder taken out. Or did we already talk about this?
I think the last surgery you had was your vasectomy.
I'm just always in the doctor's office all of a sudden. Yeah, I had to have my gallbladder taken out, and so we missed a couple weeks because of that. And then we were supposed to record this week, but things got a little busy, and we had to put it off a couple days. So Thursday night recording, it's a little weird, but we're going to get it done. But this episode is going to all be about just what kind of trades we could expect, or what kind of trades we think are either being rumored to happen, or that we are just our opinions on the trades for trading our number 3 pick, along with, Simons and everything else that we see. So I know we talked about this a little while ago, on the last podcast about, we got the 3rd pick. What do we think we should do? Have you changed your mind at all? Have you been persuaded more on one side or the other since the last podcast? And then what was your opinion on it?
I don't think I've changed my mind. I'm pretty sure what my opinion was that I would prefer to trade Dame. I think I said Miami before. If not, I wanted Miami, and now I still think that's the best option, just personally. But I was also happy to keep Dame if he wanted to be here. And in the time since our last episode, I think it's been pretty clear that he does want to be here. So even though I might slightly prefer to rebuild, I'm more than happy to keep him. Like he said, and like we said earlier, I think we do have the assets to build a decent team, a team that can get to the second round, and I can have fun with that. I don't think we can build a contender, but I'm happy with a somewhat competitive team. But anyways, even if you don't agree and you still think we should trade Dame, we'll talk about that next week. This week we're only entertaining trade ideas where we're building around Dame, regardless of our opinions.
Yeah, and I'm still kind of in the same boat. I just want us to pick one way or the other. I don't care if it's trade Dame. That's fine with me. If it's not to trade Dame and to trade the pick, that's fine with me. Just pick one and let's do it.
There should be no scenario where Dame and the 3rd pick are both on the team come October, whenever the season starts.
So let's hop into, I think, probably the one that's been rumored the most, or at least the one that I hear the most frequent trade asset that we keep hearing for this number 3 pick. And surprise, surprise, for the 3rd year in a row, it has to deal with the Toronto Raptors. And this is a player that me and you both were very big on. And, we last year would have loved to have had him. So just right off the bat, Siakam for the 3rd pick. And then obviously you're going to have to throw in, my guess is going to be Simons, just to match.
Yeah, you kind of have to.
And then I know some people had said even Nurk would have to be included in that. So let's not worry about what we would have to throw in, just strictly. If it was just a 3rd pick for Siakam, is that a player that you think is worth trading our 3rd pick for?
So first of all, I do, but I don't think that's fair because it's not, we have to throw in Simons. I don't know if it's possible to make a trade without it.
True. We would have to, yes.
Yeah, so I think it's more fair to just do the 3rd and Simons for Siakam. Mm-hmm. And I do have a lot of thoughts. Most of them are in favor of the trade. And some of them are hard to talk about without talking about Jaylen Brown, who we'll get to later, but I'll start off with just Siakam. I think the 3rd pick, you know, in your hypothetical, if we could just do the third for Siakam, I think that's a perfectly fair win-win for both sides. I think throwing in Simons makes it a little bit. We lose the trade. Yeah, I think we lose the trade. But I also think that Siakam is an incredible player. I think the jump he's made in the last 2 years is crazy. I used to be, I don't want to say a hater, but I didn't really believe in Siakam at all, like 2 or 3 years ago. But I think like, and again, I'm from Toronto. I'm watching, I'd say at least half the Raptors games, maybe like a third, but like definitely a good chunk. And I've noticed like a very, very strong and noticeable improvement in him. I think he's a great playmaker for his position. I think he can create his own shot off the dribble. He can catch and shoot. He's added so much. Like he's added more tools to his arsenal. Like a couple of years ago, everyone made fun of him. All he had was a spin move. That's not the case anymore. He can do so many things on offense to score, and he's a good playmaker. And he's he can play the pick and roll so well with Dame. There's just so many things on offense that I think he fits with Dame so perfectly. And to add on to that, he's a great defender too. Like he's a good good perimeter defender. He can pretty much guard any forward, in my opinion. And he's even okay as a small ball five. Like Raptors played him as a small ball five like a lot this season. Wasn't amazing, but he held his own for sure. But we're not going to be playing him at five anyway, so that's not really much of a factor, anyways. But I think his fit with Dame is like I don't know what more you could want beside Dame. No, let's get your thoughts on it before I continue.
No, I mean I agree. I think if you trade Simons and the third pick, you're definitely giving up a lot of value. You're giving up a player that's 23 years old, scoring 21 points a game, shooting 40% from three. You're giving up a top 3 pick, which most likely sounds like it's going to be Scoot. So for those of you that do not know, it sounds like the Hornets are going to be picking Miller, which leaves Scoot to us, which a lot of people say he would be the number 1 pick in almost any other draft out there. So you're giving up a very, very high prospect in Scoot, plus 21 points from a 23-year-old, 24-year-old, and you're getting Siakam. So here's my one concern. I think Siakam fits our team better. The needs we have, we definitely need Siakam. My one concern is I think he only has 1 year left on his contract. So if we do this trade, it's kind of like if we don't make a good run at it, it might just be a rental, and then we decide to not even bring him back, and that worries me when you're giving up the third pick. But I feel like if you're gonna do this, you have to try to bring him back. But at the same time, if we have kind of like a repeat again this year, where it's just like we underperform with what we thought we could be, where we could be, like at least making the playoffs. I don't know. That's a scary thought. I still think that Siakam is a very good player, and that's a player that I want on our team. But I could see why people are a little skeptical on wanting him. Let me ask you this, though. This trade scenario that I see here on Blazers Edge, some people like Blazers Edge, some people don't. I truly don't care either way. Is Siakam and the 13th pick in this year's draft. For us, we would be trading Simons, Nasir Little, and the third pick, and a future first-round pick for Siakam and the 13th pick. Does that make you, getting that 13th pick, does that make you feel better giving up Simons? Although now we're giving up another pick too on top of Simons. So let's not even worry about this. Let's just, like you said, number 3 and Simons for Siakam. Let's not worry about the 13th pick and all these other things. I think if it was me, and if we are deciding to build around Dame, I'm fine with this trade. It's going to hurt a little bit, but I'm fine with it. I don't have an issue with it.
Can you just repeat the trade again? I kind of follow.
Yeah. So the one they're suggesting is we get Siakam and the 13th pick, and they get Simons, Nasir Little, the third pick, and a future protected first round pick.
That's terrible. What?
That's what the more when I read it back, I was like, that's a lot.
Whoa, that's like 3. Like, I was hesitant to include Nas, but you also want us to throw in a future pick? No way.
Yeah. So your 2 picks and Simons, so 3 first round picks essentially for him. It's a lot. So if it's just Simons, which I'm going to say this right now, I think Toronto is kind of feeling the pressure. I think a lot of people are kind of like, a lot of teams are like, you know what, you've held out 3 years in a row and wanting your crazy trade demands, and now you're kind of like, well, you're either going to be stuck with these players or you're going to have to lower your asking price for these players. Because I mean, the asking price last year was crazy for a lot of these players, and I think there's a lot of teams that are kind of like over it and they're not gonna pull on it. So for me, summarize everything, I'm fine with trading Siakam, fine with trading Simons in the third pick for Siakam if we are building around Dame. I don't have an issue with it.
All right, let me just touch on a couple of things you talked about. A couple of things that I've seen on Reddit about, like the negatives, I guess. One, the contract, as you mentioned, he has a year left. I think I saw that we can extend him and trade him at the same time, so that would kind of ease some of those concerns. But I don't think he's, like, he's not like some diva superstar who's gonna want to leave. I think he's gonna be, like, if Dame is staying, I think he would be happy to stay with Dame on a competitive team. So that's not really a concern in my mind. Second was, like, sure, we're paying a little bit more, but I think if we can turn it into a 3-team trade, we definitely need that 13th pick back from Toronto. When I was looking at three-way ideas, and I know it's always easier said than done, but one that I liked a lot was if we sent, I think it was the 13th pick from Toronto, the 23rd pick, which is ours from New York, and then Nurk to kind of match salaries. If we could grab Keldon Johnson from San Antonio, and the kind of an issue with that is he's a small forward, but if we played him at the 2, it could be really interesting. So then we could pick up Keldon Johnson and Siakam for pretty much Simons in the 3rd pick, and I feel like that's a huge win. Also, another interesting one could be, the same thing, but instead of Keldon Johnson, we could pick up Norman Powell back from the Clippers. But anyways, the point I'm getting at is, if we are overpaying slightly, and again, I think we're only overpaying slightly, not like a lot. I think doing a 3-way trade can ease some of those concerns a lot. If we can get that 13th pick back, between 13, 23, and Nurk, I think we can pick up another like solid player. So that's, again, slight overpay. And at the end of the day, if you are slightly overpaying to build a contender, like the way I'm thinking about it is, I think we could have gone Siakam for like the 5th pick if we stayed where we were instead of moving up. And I feel like Siakam and 5th is fair. So we just got luckier to get the 3rd. So it's not really like we're losing more. We were going to lose this pick either way. It's that the other team is getting something better. What we were getting, whether it was the 5th, 6th, or 3rd, it's going to be it's the same, So I'm not, like, if there was someone out there who that much better than Siakam and that the 3rd pick like put us in the conversation, like, to get them, like, I can understand that, but the tier of players that we are able to grab has not changed. So the fact that it's the 3rd pick for Siakam is not an issue for me either, as long as we do a 3-way trade to get one more role player, one more like a starter caliber player. And then the last thing that I've heard a lot about, like, going against this trade, which is a fair concern, but it's like so minor that I don't know why it's talked about so much, is his fit with Jeremy Grant, because they're both 4s. They're both like just barely above average shooters. We're building around Dame. We're not building around Grant. Like, it's the team's job to fit around Dame. If Grant is playing the 3, which he's more than capable of, sure, he might be a little bit better as the 4. It's not really a big issue. He's still capable of playing the 3, and they're both good fits next to Dame. So it doesn't matter if it doesn't matter if the fit with Grant isn't that good, because the fit with Dame is just so perfect that we all should be okay with, kind of not even really sacrificing anything, because you're not sacrificing anything. It's just not ideal, I guess. But anyways, to sum it up, Siakam fits perfectly with Dame on offense. He's a great defender. He can shoot. He can create his own shot, which is like one of the biggest things. He's a good playmaker. He can attack the rim, which is very important. I think, when CJ was here, one of our biggest issues was we had two jump shooters as our 1 and 2. We need a guy who can attack the rim. Even Jeremy Grant can't do that. Siakam can do that. So I think it's just a perfect fit. That's the only way I can put it. Like, so these minor concerns about we're losing a little bit of value, or the fit with Grant isn't perfect, like those are non-issues for me.
Yeah, I mean, you're losing some 3-point shooting, but you're gaining so much defense, and you're gaining so much ability to attack the basket and essentially create off of attacking the basket. I don't have an issue with the fit between him and Grant. The same way that he played just fine with Scotty Barnes and OG Anunoby. So I'm not worried. And like you said it perfectly. We're building around Dame. We're not building around Grant. Those two players have to coexist with Dame. It's not those two players having to coexist with each other. So I've got no issue with it. Not at all. I'm not even worried about that. And I think Grant can be we saw at the beginning of the year, Grant was a good 3-point shooter. And I think that's just, as the season went on and teams kind of more focused more on that. And then we lose Dame for a little bit. And then it's just, I'm not worried about it. I think Siakam's a great fit. Here's a trade. I don't think we need to spend much time on it. I'm not a fan of it at all, but a lot of people were talking about this. We trade the number 3 pick and Simons for Wendell Carter Jr., Gary Harris, the 6th and the 11th pick. I don't like that trade at all.
No, not even worth discussing.
No,
you hang up the phone right away.
Yep, it's a lot of people were throwing that out there, but it's just not enough value. Nowhere close to enough value for. I like Wendell Carter Jr., but not enough to do either of those two players. I may consider Simons. I don't know. Maybe not even that. I don't know.
No.
Yeah, so we won't spend any time on that. That's just a waste of time. But that was one that a lot of people were talking about. Another one I saw. I'm not necessarily. I don't know. I don't think it happens, and I'm not necessarily a fan of this one. I like the Siakam one much better than this one. Is another one I saw was DeMar DeRozan and Caruso for Nurkic in the number 3 pick. It's not terrible, but I would much rather have Siakam than DeRozan and Caruso.
I feel like the contracts don't work for that, but I don't know. I don't know the numbers off the top of my head. That's interesting. I hadn't heard that one for Nurk. I heard it for 3 and Simons for DeMar and filler, but I think I saw DeMar in our pick back, which was interesting.
Mm-hmm.
But I did like it for a little bit, but the more I think about it, DeMar's not a good shooter. He's not a good shooter.
If we do that trade, we have a giant hole at center, which we already have a giant hole at center. But now we have an even bigger hole at center because now we have no center besides Eubanks.
Yeah, it's interesting, but
it's not anything crazy. Like, no way, but it's also not like I wouldn't be like that's the one we need to do either.
If it happens, I would probably be upset in the moment, but I think as the season goes on, I'd be like, I think we'd be enough to be at an 8 seed. That's all it does.
The question is, does DeRozan equal the 3rd pick? Like, is he enough for the 3rd pick? Nurkic is an important piece, but really, when you come down to it, is DeRozan worth the 3rd round pick or the 3rd pick? And
I think for a year he is, but I don't know how long DeRozan's going to hold up.
Exactly.
He's probably 33 already.
He's 34 now. So I mean, he's up there. He's up there with Dame. and he's already not the greatest
I know
shooter.
Dame is old too. Yeah, but Dame is a good shooter. That's why his age doesn't matter as much.
Yeah, their
DeMar,
games
he's
are
not as good of
different.
a
So
shooter, so
Dame
his
will
age
age.
not
Yeah, Dame will age well.
gracefully.
Yeah. One other one I wanted to talk about real quick. I talked a little bit with you before we started. It's kind of interesting, and I'm having a hard time deciding if it's a fair trade, if it's even like enough for the other team to want to consider. But it's Nurkic in the 3rd pick for Lauri Markkanen. I feel like in this trade we are getting the better end of it, which
Yeah.
always makes me feel like, oh, it's not enough. Then like we have to give more. If we're getting the better end, it's not gonna happen. But I mean, if you think about it, if Utah really is committed to rebuilding, Markkanen, we looked it up, is 26. He just turned 26. That's not old, but if you're rebuilding and you're getting a 3rd pick with potentially what could be a number 1 pick in almost all the other drafts, I see the value there. I see the value to it. But my question is, does Markkanen help us out that much?
I think he does. He's a small forward, or is he smaller or power forward? I don't know.
I think
He
he's
can probably
considered
play
a
either
power
one.
forward. I think he can play either. Yeah, him
He
and
can probably
Greg
play
kind
either
of
one.
teach each
Yeah,
other.
they're interchangeable. But yeah, like you said, I think we're winning that. If there's maybe something that we can add to even it out, that could be really interesting. But if not, I think, I think we're probably winning that by too much.
Yeah, and I have one more for you. I haven't ran this one by you, and there's a couple steps to this one, so just stick with me here. First step is we remove the protection off of our future picks, and we give the Bulls the New York Knicks pick this year. Okay, so now we are free to use our later picks.
Mhm.
Then we free up some cap space. Okay, this is all I can't remember what website.
I think I'm already not gonna like this.
I know you're gonna like this part. I know you will. We're gonna free up some cap space. We're gonna trade Nurkic for Collins and a 2026 first round pick. These are just suggestions. So we get
Zach Collins or John Collins?
Zach Collins back, and a 2026 lottery protected first round pick for Nurkic.
Nothing with the 3rd pick?
Nothing with the 3rd pick. We're just freeing up cap space here.
I mean, I like to trade. I just don't see.
You don't see the Spurs doing it.
That for sure. I don't see them doing it at all.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, we can't really open up cap space, but I guess it gives us some breathing room with the luxury tax, so I can see the value there. So yeah, I think I do like that because I'm a huge Zach Collins fan. He's good all season, but once what's his name? Once Pirtle got traded, he averaged like 18 and 10 for like 20 games and on really good efficiency. So I think Zach Collins is a great player. I think you can even make the argument he's as good as Nurk. I don't see them trading a pick and Zach Collins. I think like it would have to be straight up if anything.
Okay, so let's just say they do it. Let's say somehow we luck out and do it. I do also think getting a pick plus Collins is kind of a lot. Maybe a 2nd round pick would be more realistic, but let's just say they do it. Then the 3rd step is we get Siakam. We're giving Simons the 3rd pick, Little, and Keon Johnson, which we've already kind of talked about. We're okay. We're okay. It seems like a little little too much, but we're okay with it. And then to finish it off, and this is kind of surprising, we trade with the Pistons and we get Isaiah Stewart. And it's just a bunch of 2nd round picks. And if we had to include Jabari Walker, we could. What do you think about Isaiah Stewart?
I feel like he's a decent bench player, but that's about it. Like I don't see. I'd rather just leave that part of the trade out and do the first 2 steps.
Yeah, so I mean, you're getting he's a shorter center if I remember right. He's only like 6'9" or something like that, but he is kind of a little bit. He's 6'8", so he's even smaller than 6'9". But he's a strong guy. But that's clearly just front court depth there. So you're getting Siakam. You're moving away from Nurk. I almost actually, now that I'm thinking about this, I don't like this at all.
Why not?
We're getting rid of pretty much everybody. We're getting rid of Simons, the pick, Nurkic,
I think we were
Nasir,
overpaying on the.
and then all we're getting is Siakam and Stewart and Collins. I don't know if I like it
I think we're overpaying on the Siakam side for sure.
on the Siakam side.
I mean, unless.
And then, go ahead. We lost you.
Me now?
Yep, there you are.
The laptop is so slow. It's not even that old. It's a 2017 Mac, but it's horrible. I'm literally buying a new one, hopefully within the next few weeks. So hopefully this doesn't happen again. But it's frustrating. Good. Anyways, we were talking about Siakam, Zach Collins. Oh right. Unless we're sending like Nasir Little to the Spurs for that future pick, I think like I might even it out a little bit, but otherwise I think we're overpaying for Siakam a little bit.
Okay. I have one last trade this is one that I just was thinking about while I was sitting here looking at stuff, okay? And this does not include, actually before I do this trade, is there any trades that you have that includes trading the third pick?
There's two very big ones that we haven't talked about yet.
Let's go. You go for it.
Go for them first?
Yep, you go for it.
All right, let's start with the unrealistic, or the one that I think is unrealistic.
Oh, I already know where we're going, and I like it a lot.
It's apparently one of Dame's best friends in the league, and like Dame's been pretty vocal about trying to trade for him. Third pick, and I guess Simons to match contracts or Nurk, whatever works, for Mikal Bridges.
Mm-hmm.
And like whatever else, fill in the rest of the trade as needed. But the core would be the number 3 pick for Mikal Bridges. I would love to do that. I don't think it's realistic because the Nets have been pretty clear that they're not trading him and they want him to be a centerpiece for their rebuild. And also because I don't think they own their pick next year or the one after that. One of them is missing, so they have no reason to tank either. That's why I don't think it's realistic. But if it was on the table, like third pick and Nurk for Mikal Bridges, I would be down.
So would you take that one over Siakam?
I was thinking about asking you that. If we can do third and Nurk for Mikal, I would, and then trade Simon somewhere else.
Although I don't think there's any way that we get Mikal without Simons and the third pick being used. I mean, and like you said, Brooklyn has made it pretty clear that they are not trading him to us for the third pick. So
I mean, I'm okay adding in Simons, but then I would want like a good piece back. Like what's their center's name? I like him a lot. Claxton.
Yep.
If we got Claxton,
which that's a lot of what people were suggesting was Bridges and Claxton for Nurk
and Simons.
Simons and the pick.
Yeah, like I think I like that. Yeah, I think I prefer that.
I'm not opposed to it.
I am.
I think Mikal's very good.
I'm a tiny bit lower on Mikal than most people, but I still think he's a great fit for us.
Yeah, I think he's very good, and like you said, Dame really, really likes him. I don't have an issue with it. If we were able to get Claxton and him for all three of them, for Simons and Nurk and the pick, that to me is a no-brainer. You would do it right away. I think with them already saying they're not going to trade Bridges, that to me is just already out the window. We have a better chance of just getting Bridges. I don't think there's any way we get both of them, but if there was some way to do it, it's a no-brainer for me. I don't even have to think about it for 1 second.
I'm trying to think if I would prefer, like, if the price was the same between Siakam and Mikal. I'm trying to think who I would prefer, but like I guess it doesn't really matter because the price can't be the same. We have to include Simons for Siakam. Oh, one thing we didn't talk about, I guess that's like not even really worth talking about, was when like Nurk or Nas to Toronto and got OG and Siakam. I don't think that's really I think they're only going to trade
I
one of
wish.
them. I think they're only going to trade one of them.
I
so
wish.
it's not very likely, anyways. But yeah,
I think if there was any way that we got both of them, Sharp would have to be in the trade.
so too. And I would consider
there
that
wouldn't.
too, to be honest.
I would too. I would now listen. This is funny because we started off the year saying how we should trade the Sharp pick, and we started off like, oh man, I don't like Sharp. Why did we pick him? And then we started seeing him play more, and he grew on us. I like Sharp a lot. And for those of you who do not know, the Blazers have come out and said that Sharp is pretty much untouchable. So untouchable means he's probably not going anywhere unless it's for some crazy trade. So I like Sharp. I think he could be a good piece for us in a championship team even right now. Like I think he does bring some. If he keeps continuing to develop like he was towards the end of the year, I think he could be a very good piece
I
for
agree.
us.
I think he can be.
I
think he can be a rotation player on a like a playoff team, like a good playoff team. Ready? I am okay with trading him though. I don't consider him untouchable. At the same time, I don't see an offer that that would be like, okay, that's
worth giving him up. Okay, get to the big one, the one that I like the most.
Ooh. I hate that so many people do like this the most, though.
I love this.
So I also put a poll on our Discord. I didn't add everyone though because I thought that might have been annoying, but we still got I think about 10 votes, and the majority, six of them went for Jaylen Brown, who is coming off a horrible playoffs, is pretty much has all the worst qualities of CJ McCollum, and yet the Blazers fan base seems to think he's our best trade option. I genuinely do not understand this. I think you are in favor of it, so let me hear your thoughts first, and I'll rebut after.
I get it. I do get it. He had a very bad playoff series. He had a very bad game 7. But you know who else had a very bad game 7 and no one seems to want to talk about? Tatum. And I understand he hurt his ankle. I understand. But Tatum also had a couple bad games in that series. There was one game where he didn't have any. What was the game? Maybe that wasn't even the Western or the Eastern Conference Finals. What was the game where he had hardly scored at all? And then the fourth quarter, like he came back and saved them, but still didn't finish with a lot of points. Do you remember what I'm talking about?
I think it was against Miami, but I don't remember for sure. Oh no! It was against the Sixers. I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
Was it? Okay. I mean, let's just be honest. Tatum had some bad playoff games too, but you don't see people saying like, "Oh my God, Tatum's."
I'll finish. I was about to say something, but I'm gonna let you finish.
Okay. Jaylen Brown to me is a player that he comes in. He's going to be your second best player right off the bat. The biggest knock I think a lot of people have on Jaylen Brown is it seems like he can't dribble the ball. And I won't deny that he fumbles the ball a lot, but I'm not worried about that. He plays good defensively. He can shoot. He can take it in. He's not afraid to, bang down low and try to dunk on every single person he can. He's a high energy player for most of the time. I truly think that he was just burnt out. I think both of them. I think Tatum and him were both just burnt out.
I disagree on almost everything you just said, and I know I'm in the minority here from what I've seen online. I don't think he plays with that much energy. He's a good shooter, but he's so inconsistent. Like he'll give you he's just like CJ. He'll give you like 2 good games in a 10-game stretch. The other 8 games, he's not going to shoot well. His defense is overrated in my opinion. Like I think I said this in Discord. Like yes, he's an upgrade for us defensively, but I don't think he's a good defender. He's average, maybe more likely below average in my opinion. His handling is a big issue in my opinion because you want someone who can create their own shot, not someone who can turn it over. Also, yes, Tatum had some bad games. Tatum also had good games. Jaylen Brown, I don't think he had a good game all playoffs. Maybe in the first round.
He had some.
He had some okay games, but it was either he had more bad games than okay games. games. Like that's how bad he was this playoffs. He can't dribble the ball. I'm not even like considering his off the court issues, which are countless as well. But he's so inconsistent. His defense is overrated. He chucks shots. He's not great at attacking the rim. Like sure he does more than CJ or like whoever you want to pick, but he's not that great at it. He's he Oh, and the other thing, Tatum is the one who gets the most of the attention from the defense. Jaylen Brown is like he's not the priority for the defense, and he still can't take advantage of that. So yeah, he's inconsistent. He's simply not that good. He's not that good defensively either. Shooting, his shooting is suspect. He literally cannot dribble the ball for his life. It's been like an issue since he's been in the league. What is that, 4 or 5 years now? Probably more, to be honest. And like I said when I was talking about Siakam, who you want next to Dame, it should be someone who can attack the rim really well. Like Siakam is so good at that. Jaylen Brown is like average at best. You don't want him next to Dame. His fit next to Dame is terrible.
Let me stop this slander for a second. I think this may be the first time me and you have like really been like on opposite sides here. Okay, let me give you some numbers here. Okay, the first round series with Atlanta, he averaged 26.7 points, shooting 54% from the field and 51% from three. Okay. 26 points, 50% from three, 50% from the field. I would love on our team. And then against Philadelphia, a little bit less. He averaged 23 points a game, still 54% from the field, and his 3-pointers went down a little bit to 43%. Still very good. The only issue, and I won't deny it, turnovers. And it's clear. It's been an issue for a while. And then the last series against Miami, where both Tatum and him had bad games, he only averaged 19. He shot 41%, and he shot 16% from three. Now, he had a couple games with 32, 35, almost another 31, couple 29s. I don't think he's inconsistent. I really think Miami just put the beat down on them. And I think both him and Tatum were both just gassed at that point. But I'm unbiased. The series against Miami was terrible, which is a good thing for us. Because there were people thinking like, oh man, now we can't get Brown. There's no way we're going to get him now because Boston's going to want to keep him. And I still think Boston's going to keep him. But I would, if we could trade the third pick and Simons for anybody, and it may be just because I like Jaylen Brown so much, but that's my number one guy right there, Jaylen Brown.
Okay, we've talked about this on the podcast before. Every single Blazers fan has talked about this in the last 3 years repeatedly. You don't want, if you're building a team, a contender, it doesn't matter who the players are. I guess unless it's like Steph and Clay, you don't want your two best players to be guards. That's just not good.
That's fair.
It doesn't matter if CJ and Jaylen Brown play differently. It's not a good fit to have your two best players be guards, especially when they don't really fit well next to each other anyways, in my opinion. It's just especially when you have an option right in front of you, Siakam, who is very clearly being shopped, and it sounds like he's on the table if we want him. Who in my opinion is straight up a better player even if you don't consider fit, because he's a great defender, not like an average one. And interior defense is so much more important than perimeter defense anyways. You have a guy like that on the table who fits next to Dame, who has won a championship, sure, as a role player, but he has shown up in the playoffs. He fits next to Dame on both ends of the court. He plays hard. He can play make. Jaylen Brown cannot. Okay, I'm looking at his numbers now. They're not as bad as I thought. But he's definitely not a playmaker at all. His basketball IQ is just not good. He's not a winning player in my opinion. That I'm willing to go that strongly.
Yeah, I mean, I guess he hasn't made an all defensive team. He's made all NBA second team this year. He's been a 2-time All-Star. I don't. When I say that he's good defensively, I don't want to make it sound like I think that he's just as good as any other, defensive player, because obviously Siakam is a much better defensive player than Jaylen Brown is.
But it's not even just you. Like, people act like he's a two-way player. He's definitely not a two-way player. He's a one-way player who's just not terrible.
I think he can hold.
That's what he is.
I think he can hold his own.
He can
Yeah,
hold
he's
his
just
own,
not like a stopper.
depending on the player, in my opinion. Yeah. Okay, I'll give you that. He can hold his own. He's definitely not a stopper, which I feel like people are making him out to be, which is
But
not
see,
the case.
don't you think it would be nice to have a player, a two guard, who maybe not necessarily, like, we were so excited for Gary Payton because he could help Dame. Like, oh, Gary Payton's so good defensively, he can help out with Dame with struggling, who struggles on defense. We just, at that position at 2 now, we don't have to worry about having to help, because that number 2 guy can guard whoever he's guarding in front of him, and it's not like we're not losing defensively on that. He can hold his own. Now, he's not going to make these great defensive plays to help other players necessarily all the time, but we're also not going to be getting beat from the 2 guard all the time because CJ Simons can't play defense at the 2 guard.
I think that one, like, if there was like a star shooting guard on the other team, I think Siakam can also hold his own as a perimeter defender. Obviously, he's better as a forward. I think he can hold his own just as well as Jaylen Brown. I also think we can sign someone with our MLE, our mid-level exception, who's a defender like we did last year with Gary Payton. Hopefully, Nas improves on the defensive end a little bit more as well, and then you can trust him to guard perimeter defenders as well. I think we have other options where it's like Jaylen Brown's defense is not enough of a factor to like put in the positive column, in my opinion, because, or at least when you're comparing him to Siakam.
That's fair enough.
But even in general, I wouldn't call it a positive, but definitely not compared to Siakam, because I'm happy to lose out on the difference between defense on Nas and Jaylen Brown and get Siakam instead.
So let me ask you my last little thing on Jaylen Brown here. Would you feel better knowing that, in 3 years, when Dame is no longer, when he's on the decline, you have Jaylen Brown, who's 26 right now, so he'd be 29 then. You'd have Shaedon Sharpe, who's like 24 by then, 23, 24. Instead of having Dame and Siakam, who are both about the same age, because isn't Siakam he's in his 30s now, right?
He's 28, 29.
Oh, is
I
he?
have it open. Just
okay, that's a little bit better than I thought. He was a little bit older.
You can finish your thought though, because I have some thoughts.
Well, my thing was like, if you have in 3 years you have Dame being 37 and you have Siakam being, so he's 29 right now, so you have Siakam being 32, 33. I feel like our team would be in a better spot with Jaylen Brown at 29 and Sharpe at 23, 24 than we would be with Dame on the decline of his career and Siakam probably at that point on the decline as well. And then having Sharpe being your young guy.
I have 2 points. The first one I don't necessarily agree with, but like it's too hard to tell right now. But one would argue that when Dame is, when he's on the decline, when he's retired or gone, you don't want to be like a low-level playoff team. You'd rather just go all in on the rebuild.
And
so
that's true.
Becomes old.
I agree with you. We'd kind of be in the same position we are now, where it's like we're competing.
Depends on how. Like, it depends on how good Sharpe is at the time. Then maybe you do want to stay competitive. So like we can't tell right now. But my bigger argument is we're we're building around Dame. That's our timeline. It doesn't matter what happens after
That's
Dame.
true.
We want to maximize the talent around Dame while he is in his prime. So it doesn't matter who's going to be better 5 years from now. We care about who's going to be better this year and next year. That's our window. I mean, our window's not really open anyways, but you know what I mean.
Look. I have accepted the fact that Jaylen Brown will not be a Portland Trailblazer. And you have accepted the fact that you don't want him to be a Portland Trailblazer. So
Correct.
We're both good. We disagree on it, but we both know it ain't happening. So we're both good. But let me ask you this. I know we said this was going to be a podcast all just about trading that third pick, right?
Yeah.
This is something I was sitting here and I was looking at, and I was just kind of thinking. So let's just say for this example, we use the third pick and we pick Scoot, right? For those of you that do not know, the Phoenix Suns, surprisingly, I'm a little shocked by this, they released Chris Paul. I figured with Kevin Durant there, I feel like Chris Paul was one of the reasons why Kevin Durant went to Phoenix, so I was kind of surprised by that. So now Phoenix is in need of a point guard, right? What team has a young, potentially point guard? I mean, I think we both agree he probably is better at point guard than at shooting guard. Who has a young point guard and maybe a big that could fill in for Ayton. And I'm not the biggest fan of Ayton, but if we were to pick Scoot and then we were to trade Nurk and Ant to Phoenix for Ayton, then you have Dame and Scoot, you have Sharp, you have Grant, and you have Ayton. That's a fairly good starting lineup. I still do not like the idea of keeping Dame and using the pick. I still don't like that idea, but there definitely are rumblings of people thinking we might actually use the pick and still keep Dame.
I think the rumblings are just to kind of take back some leverage.
That's kind of what I think too, honestly.
Because Dame kind of like made it clear that he wants to trade it, so we're trying to get some of that back. But in terms of that trade, I don't know what the obsession is that the Blazer fan base has with trading for guys who are soft and like have disappointing playoffs. But Aiden is not someone I would want on this team, even if we got him for free. He's a good player, but he's not a good. His attitude is problematic. I don't think you're gonna win a championship with him. I understand they went to the finals, but I don't think you can win a championship with him as your starting center.
I will say this. I will come to his defense for one thing. Playing with Chris Paul when Ayton is definitely not confrontational. Ayton, like you said, is kind of a soft center. Chris Paul, I mean, if you guys have watched Phoenix Suns games, Chris Paul legitimately will just yell at him. And we already know that Ayton said he didn't want to play there last year. Like, he made it clear he wanted to be traded. And they matched the offer and never traded him. So you're already in a place where you don't want to be. And then you have this 6'3" little dude just and granted he's a Hall of Fame player, but you have this 6'3" little dude just yelling at you constantly.
There's no way Chris Paul is 6'3".
I think that's what they list him as, but I don't think he's 6'3". I could be wrong.
Listed taller than 6'1". That's a lie. But anyways, go on.
This little dude, little bald-headed guy, just yelling at you. State Farm. He's supposed to be the nice guy out here, and he's just yelling at you constantly. And granted, sometimes I do believe Ayton deserved to be kind of yelled at, but you're already in a spot you don't want to be, and now you're getting yelled at by your point guard, and you're not being used the way you probably want to be used. And then you get Kevin Durant on your team, and you become even less useful. For some reason, Monty Williams didn't like him and didn't want to play him. And all that to say, I think if he were to come here, I don't think we'd get the same Ayton that Phoenix got. But I also don't necessarily want Ayton either. But in this scenario where we use the pick, I would much rather have Ayton than keep Ant and Nurk. I feel like if we're going to use the pick, then Simons has to go.
Yeah. I mean, just like
Simons, Dame, and
he has to
Scoot.
go anyways.
it doesn't make sense. But yeah, that's something I was just sitting here looking at. But I did want to ask you one more question. I was scrolling the great old Facebook in some of the Blazer groups I'm in. So this is my last one for you, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And then this one, Eric Jones. So shout out to Eric Jones. He says this is his step by step here, and I just want your opinion on this. We draft Scoot at number 3. We trade the Bulls Keon and 2 second-round picks to free up our future picks. And then we trade Ant, the number 23 pick, and then 2 future, or no, let me see here. Ant, the number 23 pick, a future first and 2 future seconds for OG instead of Siakam. And then we're signing, OG and Boucher, which, okay. And then we're signing and trading Nurkic and Boucher for Brook Lopez. What are your thoughts on this?
I don't think Milwaukee trades Brook Lopez, like, no matter what, to be honest. He was runner-up defensive player of the year. He's a great 3-point shooter.
Player of the year, very, very good player.
Yeah, like, especially not for Nurk, but I don't think they would trade him in general. He's like fits so perfectly.
Unless they're wanting to try to go it would be crazy for them to trade the runner-up to defensive player of the year and a very good 3-point shooter. But maybe they have different plans. What's going on in Milwaukee right now is kind of weird. The coaching change that they picked, it was weird. When you have other coaches that you would think would be much better at that position, and they asked Giannis what coach they want, and he picked that coach, kind of like Dame did with Chauncey Billups. Essentially, I mean, obviously he wanted Jason Kidd first, but then when it was known that that's not going to happen, Dame pretty much said, "Then I want Billups." And there was people thinking, I think you were one that would rather have had D'Antoni, right?
Yeah.
So at the time, there was Monty Williams that was a coach that they could have grabbed. There was, although I don't know why anyone would want this coach, Doc Rivers was a coach they could have grabbed. And then there was one other big name coach, and now I'm trying to blank on who it was.
Finalist.
Nick Nurse, yes, Nick.
But
Nurse.
Apparently, I heard some report that his interview didn't go well, so that could have been a factor. He's known to not be great with people, so I can see that being true.
Well, I mean, since we're speaking of coaches, shout out to Terry Stotts, by the way, going back to Milwaukee. Yeah. We didn't bring that up, but Coach Stotts is back in the NBA. It's been a couple years, and he's now back. So that'll be, and he started there, if I remember right, or at least that was like his most before us. That was where he came from, was Milwaukee, I think.
I believe so, yeah.
So
I actually didn't know that. I thought he was like on the Hawks or something, but I think it might have been both of them. I'm not sure. He
was with Dallas when they won the championship.
Oh yeah, I knew that.
And then I think he went to Milwaukee and then came to us.
Okay.
But Eric Jones with these trade ideas, they're not bad. They're not bad. I agree with you. I don't see the Bucks giving up Brook Lopez. As much as I like OG, I think Toronto would rather get rid of Siakam than OG. I think they kind of want to keep OG now.
That's kind of the vibe I'm getting to.
But I like OG. I think I've made that clear. And I do actually, I'm be honest with you, I do like his idea of trading Keon in 2 seconds to the Bulls to get rid of that lift that protection instead of trading that pick, the first pick, the 23 pick. I don't see Keon being an asset that we use, so Keon in a second round pick, I would be okay with.
Historically, like, it's only taken 1 second to just lift protection, so I feel like that should be enough. Like we shouldn't even need to throw in Terry.
So you mean just like 1 second round pick would be enough to lift the protection?
Yeah, maybe like 2, like if you absolutely need to, but I think like you don't even need to trade Keon.
It's going to be interesting because we have to lift that protection. Like that has to be something done this offseason. So it'll be interesting. The most popular is trading the first or the New York Knicks pick. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. I mean, maybe they look at our team and say, okay, they're probably going to make the playoffs for the next couple of years. Maybe the best we can get out of them is a second round pick. Because I think once that 2028 passes, if we've never, correct me if I'm wrong, if we end up making the playoffs every year, or not making the playoffs, sorry, I said making the playoffs, not making the playoffs every year, and it's lottery protected, they just lose out on that pick eventually, don't they?
Yes.
Okay. So maybe they think, well, damn, Portland, you guys really, which we kind of have, you guys have really screwed the Dame era with you know, you're going to be in the lottery for the next couple of years. Maybe they do take a second. I don't know. That's definitely number one. One of the first things that has to happen is we lift that protection, and it's going to be interesting to see what it takes.
I don't think it's necessary to do it in the off season. Like ideally, yeah, but I think you can wait until the deadline if there's no good. Like if there's no need to use our future picks, I don't think we need to rush it.
I have
it
a
depends.
feeling
I don't know.
If we're gonna trade, if we're gonna really go all in, I think we're trading that pick at the draft. We're holding it until our pick is up and making that trade. We want to have that flexibility to throw in other picks to land other players as well. In my opinion, I don't see
I see that.
why we would want to keep that protection on there throughout the season when we're trying to win now. So we want to be able to get as many assets as we can this off season and before the season starts. I just feel like you would want to have that protection gone so you're free to play with what picks you have left. And I think that's the last pick. Like, we don't owe anybody else any picks, right?
No.
We have the rest of our picks to ourselves. So, but I don't know. I mean, I'm not a GM. I have no idea what I'm talking about. I'm just sitting here playing 2K in my head.
It was really bothering me, so I had to look it up. So Stotts went. He was an assistant for Seattle, then assistant for the Bucks, then head coach for the Hawks. So I was right on that.
Oh, that's right. He was a coach. That's right.
An assistant for the Warriors for a year. I didn't know that.
Oh wow.
And head coach for the Bucks for 2 years. Then went to the Mavs, and then came to us.
Oh, so he was Bucks before us, or he was Bucks before the Mavs.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, this was an interesting podcast, and I actually think next week's podcast, or whenever, hopefully next week, I think next week's podcast is going to be even more interesting because Fuad hinted at it. Next week's podcast is going to be about trading Dame, and I think that one is going to be there's going to be a lot more fire in it. I think because I kind of am starting to lean that way as well, sadly. So. Is there anything else you want to talk about before we wrap up?
No, I just want to give a reminder that the draft night is in 2 weeks, to the day from when we're recording. So I think that is a big day. We're gonna know a lot about our future by then.
Yeah, I mean, really, once that pick number 3 pops up, we are gonna know what the hell is going on real fast. Yeah. One last thing, one quick thing. Game 3 NBA Finals is over. Denver's up 2-1 against Miami. What you got going here? You rooting for Miami? You rooting for Denver?
Oh, I'm rooting for Miami so hard.
I figured so.
I was heartbroken after Game 3, man.
I'm just gonna say this: as much as I dislike, Denver, we've had some battles in the playoffs with them. I can't not go. Jokic is just unbelievable. I can't not.
Unbelievable is the only way to put it.
He should have been the MVP this year again. He's going to get the finals MVP, and he's going to be just happy having 2 MVPs and a finals MVP. But dude, if you don't like watching Jokic play, I don't know how you don't like basketball. Like how you like basketball if you don't like watching him play. I've never seen a guy his size have the endurance that he has the passing ability, has the shooting ability, has the playmaking ability, has the touch around the rim. He can't jump over a piece of paper, yet he can dunk, and he can. It's unbelievable. It really is. I love him. Like he's, and his accent, His brothers are crazy. I'm pretty sure they're in the mafia. Man, Jokic is awesome, and I do like Jamal Murray, and I'm glad that he's playing pretty well again. Michael Porter Jr. is in his head, and he's struggling. And I like Aaron Gordon, and that was a player that I wanted on our team, a couple years ago when he was out there. So as much as it pains me to say I'm rooting for Denver, I am rooting for Denver. And I love Bam Adebayo. I love Jimmy Butler. But, man, Jokic is just... God. Denver's lucky. That's all I got to say. Okay.
All right, I think let's wrap it up. This might have been one of our longest ones.
It might be. All right, everyone, if you're still listening, thank you. We love you. As always, Rip City, baby.